Good day, dear listeners, and welcome back. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on a truly chilling case, one that reveals a murderer seemingly devoid of humanity, yet, in a twisted turn, leaves behind faint echoes of human compassion. Imagine, if you will, the scene: a mother brutally slain, yet the killer calmly cooks a meal, helps her child with homework, and even tucks the little one into bed. He waited until the child was in a deep slumber before vanishing into the night. This unsettling tale begins on the afternoon of April 27, 2018, in the city of Myanshan, Anhui Province. The local police department received a frantic call from a woman, her voice trembling as she reported that her best friend had met with a terrible fate. When officers arrived, they found the victim lying motionless on the living room floor, surrounded by a crimson tide, utterly devoid of life. The initial assessment of the living room was puzzling. It was impeccably neat, spotless, with no apparent signs of struggle. But then, the bedroom door creaked open, revealing a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned officers. Blood was splattered everywhere, not just on the floor, but reaching up the walls, painting a truly gruesome picture. The victim was identified as Xiao Qiao, the homeowner. Preliminary examinations revealed she had been brutally attacked with a blunt object, sustaining severe head trauma so extensive that brain tissue was exposed. Adding to the horror, her body bore dozens of stab wounds from a sharp object. The sheer brutality of the attack led police to conclude that the assailant intended to kill Xiao Qiao. Even more perplexing, signs in the bedroom indicated that the victim had been dragged there from the living room. Despite the living room's apparent cleanliness, dried bloodstains remained on the tiled floor, suggesting this was the initial site of the horrific crime. This tidiness, the chilling calm with which the killer meticulously cleaned the living room after the murder, was truly unsettling. A closer look at the dining table yielded more clues: a half-eaten bowl of braised chicken with pickles and a delivery receipt dated midday, April 26. The phone number on the receipt belonged to Xiao Qiao, and forensic analysis confirmed her time of death aligned with that delivery. In the kitchen, a cigarette butt was found in the trash, despite Xiao Qiao being a non-smoker. This, investigators believed, was left by the suspect. And then, the murder weapon itself, a hammer, found in the kitchen cabinet. It had clearly been wiped clean, yet faint traces of blood lingered on its surface. Tests confirmed the blood belonged to Xiao Qiao. These details painted a picture far more complex than a simple robbery homicide. Firstly, the suspect had remained at the scene for an extended period, methodically cleaning the living room. Secondly, after the heinous act, the perpetrator had meticulously cleaned the hammer and returned it to its original place. Such actions suggested the suspect not only had ample time but was also intimately familiar with the layout of the apartment. This led police to a chilling hypothesis: the murder was likely committed by someone known to the victim. But why such a cruel act against Xiao Qiao? Was it a crime of passion, or born of deep-seated hatred? To unravel the motive and learn more about Xiao Qiao's relationships, investigators sought out the very person who reported the crime, her best friend. The friend recounted receiving a text from Xiao Qiao on the morning of the 27th, asking her to pick up her son from school, as Xiao Qiao couldn't make it. On the way to school, an uneasy feeling gnawed at the friend. Xiao Qiao, despite her busy schedule, had always been punctual in picking up her son. Today, not only was Xiao Qiao absent, but the boy's answer to the question, "Where's your mom?" only intensified her concern. The child innocently replied, "Mom went to the hospital to visit someone who's sick." When pressed, "Who told you that?" the boy answered, "An uncle did." This explanation was a shock, as Xiao Qiao had been divorced for years, raising her son alone. The friend confided that she knew Xiao Qiao had been seeing someone online but had never divulged details. This revelation only fueled her suspicions. The growing sense of unease intensified when she tried calling Xiao Qiao, only to find her phone continuously turned off, highly unusual for Xiao Qiao, who was rarely without her device. Worried, she called Xiao Qiao's mother, and together they rushed to Xiao Qiao's apartment. The living room was, as the police found, clean and orderly, nothing amiss. But when they reached the bedroom door, they discovered it was locked from the inside. Despite knocking and calling, there was no answer. Finally, they resorted to calling a locksmith. The moment the door swung open, the sight before them left both women stunned, almost speechless. The room was drenched in blood. After a moment to compose themselves, they shakily dialed the police. Police confirmed Xiao Qiao's time of death was midday on the 26th. Her son had returned home from school that afternoon and stayed overnight. It wasn't until the morning of the 27th that Xiao Qiao's friend reported the incident. This added a new layer of complexity to the investigation. Was the uncle the boy mentioned connected to Xiao Qiao's death? And how had this mysterious uncle managed to remain in the apartment with the boy undetected for an entire night? To unravel this, police brought the boy to the station and gently questioned him. He recounted that on the 26th, after school, he waited for his mother at the school gate as usual. When all his classmates had left and his mother still hadn't appeared, he felt a strange sense of unease. Normally, his mother would be waiting for him as soon as he stepped out of the gate. So, he used his smartwatch to call her. But despite multiple attempts, she didn't answer. Impatient, he decided to walk home alone, a hint of childish resentment in his heart, thinking he no longer needed to wait for her. Upon reaching home, as he entered the living room, he saw a man closing his mother's bedroom door. Having met this man a few times before, and knowing he had stayed at their house for a period, the boy wasn't surprised. "This uncle has stayed at your house before?" the police inquired. "For how long, do you remember?" The boy replied, "Yes, about a week." Xiao Qiao's friend, interjecting in disbelief, exclaimed, "A whole week at your house? How could that be?" The boy insisted, "Don't you know, Auntie?" The friend, genuinely surprised, responded, "I really don't know anything." The boy continued, "Mom told me not to tell anyone." The police pressed for the man's name, age, and address, but the boy's answers were always "I don't know." Though disappointed, the officers recognized they couldn't expect too much from an 8-year-old, and his willingness to talk so freely was commendable. However, his testimony clearly indicated an unusual relationship between his mother and the man. It seemed increasingly likely that the suspect was indeed the perpetrator. As the police delved deeper, the boy's subsequent revelations were almost unbelievable. He claimed that evening, the suspect not only cooked dinner but also helped him with his homework and even told him a story before bed. After reading the story, the uncle sat on the hanging chair in the room. The next morning, when the boy woke up, the suspect was gone. These statements further deepened the mystery of the case. This was unlike any suspect the police had ever encountered. To identify this enigmatic man, they canvassed the area around the crime scene. However, Xiao Qiao's apartment complex was old, and its surveillance system was outdated. Despite this, a few valuable leads emerged from conversations with neighbors. One neighbor recalled hearing an argument from the adjacent apartment the day before the 26th, followed by a woman's scream. After that, silence. The neighbor couldn't recall other details, as it wasn't her place to interfere. No one imagined that scream would lead to such a horrific murder. Further investigation revealed that Xiao Qiao's mother had a boyfriend from Hunan. However, his specific identity remained elusive. Checking travel records, they found that Xiao Qiao's mother had flown to Changsha, Hunan, multiple times that year and rented a room there. Through the room registration information, a man named Zhang Wei, from Hunan, quickly came under police scrutiny. Myanmar police contacted their counterparts in Hunan for verification. When they met Zhang Wei, they immediately questioned him about his relationship with Xiao Qiao. But his answer baffled them. Zhang Wei claimed he didn't know Xiao Qiao and had never been to Myanmar. He also stated that his ID card had been lost 6 months prior and he had just received a new one. To verify, police asked Xiao Qiao's son to identify Zhang Wei. However, with just a glance, the boy confirmed that this was not the uncle. Police continued to investigate Zhang Wei's recent movements and found he had not left Hunan in years. Therefore, it was clear the suspect had used Zhang Wei's identity to rent the hotel room. During the investigation, police reviewed Xiao Qiao's bank account and discovered she had 9,200 renminbi. Strikingly, at 10 p.m. on the 27th, this sum was transferred to another account at the agricultural bank. The recipient was Xiao Jin, another man also from Hunan. Police immediately arrested Xiao Jin for questioning. At the station, Xiao Jin appeared bewildered, stating that he had recently lost his ID card and bank card. To corroborate, police once again had Xiao Qiao's son identify Xiao Jin, but the boy shook his head again, confirming this was not his uncle. Xiao Jin also claimed he hadn't left Hunan recently, bringing the investigation to another standstill. This led police to suspect the perpetrator might possess multiple fake ID cards. They realized the suspect was incredibly cunning, constantly using others' identities to mislead the investigation. Following the money trail, they discovered the 9,200 renminbi had been withdrawn from an ATM at the agricultural bank in Myanmar. Surveillance footage revealed a man in black at the ATM in the early morning of the 27th. He was withdrawing money while on the phone, a provocative smile even gracing his face. He made 4 consecutive withdrawals before leaving. The surveillance camera had captured a clear image of the suspect. Police then showed the image to Xiao Qiao's son. This time, the boy didn't shake his head. He confidently affirmed that this was indeed the uncle who had been at their house on the day of the incident. Based on this confirmation, police immediately identified the man in the photo as the wanted murderer. Although they now had his appearance, the questions of his true identity and current whereabouts remained. A meticulous analysis of the video revealed the man was carrying a backpack and another bag. Crucially, directly opposite the bank was a train station, raising suspicions that the suspect was attempting to flee. Immediately, police went to the train station to check ticket information and found that the suspect had used Zhang Wei's ID to purchase a ticket to Yingtan. However, upon reaching Yingtan, they discovered he had exchanged his ticket to go to Hanyang. Fortunately, the train to Hanyang was still en route. With the cooperation of the train security personnel, Myanmar police swiftly apprehended the suspect. A search revealed that the suspect possessed 3 ID cards, belonging to Zhang Wei, Xiao Jin, and Song Yang. Song Yang was the suspect's real name. By this point, 2 days had passed since the murder. Song Yang, a suspect with striking good looks, was finally arrested and brought to the Myanmar police station. Initially, he vehemently denied any involvement. However, the police wasted no time and thoroughly examined all his belongings. Sure enough, bloodstains were found on the sole of his shoe. After testing, the blood was confirmed to be Xiao Qiao's. Faced with undeniable evidence, Song Yang was powerless and forced to confess to Xiao Qiao's murder. Song Yang claimed his motive stemmed from love turning into hatred. Was this a typical tragic romance, like something out of a movie? A twisted love story where unrequited affection transforms into a brutal tragedy? It was hard to believe given Song Yang's appearance, a dark-skinned, slender man, seemingly unremarkable, that he was once a student at a prestigious university. Yet, after graduation, his career stalled, leaving him adrift and unemployed at 30, without a girlfriend or family. 2 years prior, Song Yang and Xiao Qiao met through an online game. What began as in-game friendship gradually evolved into a gaming partnership, and eventually, a romantic relationship. Xiao Qiao, 5 years Song Yang senior, a divorced single mother, maintained a free-spirited lifestyle, enjoying makeup and dressing youthfully, like a woman in her 20s. Initially, Song Yang was deeply in love with Xiao Qiao, but over time, that love morphed into an obsession. To be with her, he was willing to sever ties with his own family, even disowning his father. However, Song Yang's father adamantly opposed the relationship, finding it unacceptable for his son to marry an older, single mother. He worried about facing his neighbors and friends. Yet, Song Yang disregarded all objections and moved in with Xiao Qiao. This demonstrates the extent of Song Yang's blind love, willing to abandon all family values and filial piety for the sake of his beloved. Xiao Qiao also had feelings for Song Yang. After confirming their relationship, she would visit him monthly, traveling far to be with him and entrusting her son to his grandmother. Before the incident, Xiao Qiao had even brought Song Yang to meet her family, subtly hinting at marriage. However, during that family introduction, their relationship began to fracture. According to Song Yang's confession, when they went to the supermarket to buy gifts, he intended to buy a pre-packaged gift basket, which he found aesthetically pleasing. But Xiao Qiao told him not to buy such things, suggesting instead that he buy wine and several packs of cigarettes. Song Yang, without a stable job and financially constrained, felt pressured, unable to afford the wine. Because of this, Xiao Qiao was displeased, criticizing him as stingy. Xiao Qiao's words wounded Song Yang's pride. Enraged, he lost control, argued back, and then immediately returned to his hometown in Hunan. After returning home, Song Yang received numerous calls from Xiao Qiao, who complained that he had reacted so strongly over such a trivial matter. Xiao Qiao couldn't understand why he was angry with her. From that argument onwards, they stopped communicating. However, neither of them officially broke up. He continued to secretly stalk Xiao Qiao's social media page, monitoring her every move. But then, a shocking discovery, he found out Xiao Qiao was in a vague, deceitful relationship with another online gaming friend. A few days before the murder, he traveled back to Mianshan, renting a hotel room near Xiao Qiao's residence. His purpose was to monitor and observe her, to confirm his suspicions of infidelity. After enduring this for several days, his anger festered. While Xiao Qiao might have been patient, he could no longer control himself. He felt betrayed, as if he had been buried alive in agonizing pain. A dark thought began to fester in his mind. On the day of the crime, he went directly to Xiao Qiao's apartment to confront her about her new relationship. Xiao Qiao didn't deny it and casually replied, "Did you think that after breaking up with you, I would suffer? There's no shortage of men in this world, if not you, there are others." They argued furiously again, Xiao Qiao showing no concern for him, bluntly ordering Song Yang out of her house and speaking harsh words. At that moment, Song Yang was overcome with rage. His fury intensified, he went into the kitchen, grabbed a hammer from the cabinet, and used it to brutally assault Xiao Qiao. If you were to ask me how Song Yang felt at that moment, I could only say that he wanted to use that hammer to kill her, to silence her bitter words forever. The police later interrogated him, asking why he cleaned the living room. Did he intentionally do it to evade his crime? His answer raised doubts about his humanity. He explained that Xiao Qiao's son was about to come home, and he didn't want the boy to see the scene, fearing it would traumatize him later. The police even commended him for protecting a future generation from his cold-blooded actions. After that, he continued to rummage through Xiao Qiao's belongings, deliberately creating a scene of robbery and murder to mislead the police. But such petty tricks could not fool the keen eyes of the investigators. Finally, the police contacted Song Yang's biological father. The father bluntly stated that he had no such son, having cut ties with him long ago. He expressed no interest in what the police did, saying that Song Yang should face the consequences of his own actions. He believed he had given birth to a miserable son, who instead of bringing honor, brought a criminal case. Ultimately, Song Yang was sentenced by the People's Court to 10 years in prison without parole. It's truly a paradox, a student from a prestigious university, yet his reasoning was beyond comprehension. He committed a brutal, inhumane act, taking a life, yet feared the victim's son would be psychologically scarred by witnessing the crime. And then, in a bizarre display of compassion, he cooked for the boy, helped him with homework, and even told him a story before bed. It almost seems as if, after the murder, this killer wanted to experience the feeling of being a father, even if just for a moment, with his lover's son. Cases involving emotional conflicts are always fraught with tragedy, aren't they, my friends? With this case, I urge you, before you act, consider the consequences. Don't let anger dictate your actions. Always keep a cool head, my friends. And that, dear listeners, concludes our story. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Remember to like and subscribe if this is your first time visiting our channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.